Good evening to all. I welcome you all to the 18th online lecture of the course Experimental Methods in Thermal Engineering. In the last lecture, we have completed our discussion on the measurement of pressure. From today's lecture onwards, we'll start the different techniques, discussion on different techniques to measure velocity and its companions. So generally, when we are having a velocity field associated, along with that, we will be having the association of flow rate also, and we will be having the association of vorticity field. So that's why when we measure the velocity, ultimately we are getting the corresponding flow as well as the vorticity field also. Okay. However, that depends upon the type of measurement device, that whether we will be getting flow value or the detailed vorticity field while we are measuring the velocity. Okay. So when we measure the velocity, there are certain techniques. So these techniques are mainly categorized. First is based on the uh, measurement of pressure. So what we are having, we will be actually measuring pressure, and that pressure then we will be actually utilizing in order to obtain the corresponding value of the velocity field. Okay. Then we may have some methods associated with the thermal anemometry, where temperature field will be actually giving us finally the value of the velocity field. Then we may have some particle based techniques. Okay, so just one important point I would like to highlight over here. For example, if we are having the flow through a pipe, so we will be having large number of fluid particles which will be actually flowing inside this pipe. Okay, so now while we will be measuring the velocity field, we may have different approaches. One of the approach may be, if I take this cross section over here, say AA, and if my pipe is of circular cross section, then one of the technique can be that over this entire cross section of the pipe, I'll be actually doing a spatial average or spatial integration in order to find a single value of the velocity field over this entire cross section. So that particular value will be nothing but giving us the average value of velocity field, and that value of velocity will be nothing but coming from the spatial integration. Okay, so over here we will be doing nothing but integration or averaging over the entire surface where we are having a flow happening. Okay, so one is that kind of measurement, and another kind of measurement can be where we will be actually dividing our this fluid zone into small number of fluid elements, and then at each and every fluid element actually we will be obtaining the value of the velocity field. Okay, so in this particular type of arrangement, what uh, we will be having actually the value of velocity at different points. Okay, so in our flow field we will be having large number of points, and on all these points we will be having nothing but the spatial distribution of velocity. Okay, so over here what we will be having, we will be having the spatial distribution of velocity field. Okay, so the two broad ways we can measure the velocity. One is where we are doing the spatial integration in order to find out a single representative over the entire uh, flow field, and that will be giving us the average value of the velocity field. And another mode can be where we are actually finding out the value of velocity at different points over our entire flow field. Okay, so here we will be getting nothing but the spatial distribution of the flow field. So particularly these particle based techniques are required in order to obtain the spatial distribution of the velocity field. Okay, so what is generally done over here, we will see that one in details in the later lectures, but just as initial introduction I can tell you that while the fluid will be flowing over here, inside the fluid we will be actually inserting some buoyant fluid particles. So small buoyant fluid particles will be inserted, and we will be tracing their path in order to obtain the value of the velocity field. Okay, so This is how, with the help of particle-based techniques, we can determine the spatial distribution of the velocity. Then we may have one more method, so that is nothing but related to the molecular tagging velocimetry. Okay, so this type of method will be applicable when we are having very, very small length scales of our flow field. Okay, so in that case, what we will be doing, the motion of individual molecules can be tracked in order to obtain the velocity field. Okay, then there are certain other techniques based on the density based measurements. So particularly these type of techniques are mainly applicable when we are having the variation of the density inside our flow field. Okay, so particularly that variation of density is actually captured with the help of optical techniques. So while we will be doing this density based techniques over here, the main principle for obtaining the flow field will be actually based on the optical visualization of the flow field. So we will be having certain setup where we will be employing some optical arrangement in order to visualize our flow field. Okay. Then now what I will do, first I will tell you a very simple way for measurement of the flow, or I should say flow rate or velocity, when we are having actually some steady flow situation. Okay, so if we are having steady and incompressible flow situation, so in that case, what we can do, so this method you might have already seen when we perform our undergraduate fluid dynamics experiments in our fluid mechanics laboratory. Okay, so what we do, we are having certain pipe, and through this pipe we will be having the steady and steady flow of a fluid, and particularly the type of the fluid we will be choosing over here as nothing but incompressible fluid. Okay, now, if we allow this flow from the pipe to enter inside a fixed volume tank. Okay, so what we will be doing, we can note down the initial time at which the flow has actually started to enter inside the tank. So say that time is nothing but T1, and we can note down the final time when some fixed amount of volume is actually uh, obtained inside the tank. So say that time is nothing but T2. So over here I can simply relate flow rate by whatever the fixed volume we have taken divided by T2 minus T1. So means how much time has been taken in order to fill that fixed amount of volume. Okay, so that's very easy technique for measurement of the flow rate. Okay, once flow rate is known, obviously at any cross section where we want to measure the average value of the velocity, we can actually apply over there the continuity equation, conservation of mass, and if we are knowing the area of the cross section, obviously we will be able to determine the corresponding value of the average velocity at that particular cross section. Okay, so the accuracy of this type of method will be depending upon the accuracy of time measurement and volume measurement. So obviously if we allow if we take a large volume, in that case there will be lesser chances of the errors in measurement of time, and we will be getting more accurate value. Okay, so this is a one of the standard technique which can be employed for calibration of many other flow measurement devices. Okay, so now what we will be doing, one by one we will try to see some of the flow measurement devices. Okay, so apart from that, one more important device we are having for measurement of the flow, and these are also acts as devices for calibration of other instruments. So particularly that method of measurement is based on the positive displacement flow devices. Okay, so that particular method is known as positive displacement flow measurement. So what are the different ways which can be employed to apply this principle of positive displacement, that we will try to see in the later lectures. In today's lecture, we will start our discussion with the very first type of measurement, which is particularly related to the pressure based measurement of the velocity field. Okay. So let us first try to see the theoretical understanding behind the pressure-based velocity measurement. So what we are having a Bernoulli's equation. So this particular equation is actually written for nothing but steady flow, and that particular flow is actually taking place over a streamline. Okay, and inside along that streamline actually we are having the incompressible flow of the fluid. So now it's in general form. So here it can be for both compressible and incompressible. Now depending upon the flow situation, we will be consider density field as constant or variable. Okay. So over here you can see particularly with this equation, our pressure field is nothing but directly coupled to the velocity field. Okay. So now if we take the compressible flow situation, and if we are having a compressible flow of an ideal gas, then we are having the relationship of P naught by P is nothing but equal to 1 plus gamma minus 1 divided by 2 into m square whole power gamma divided by gamma minus 1. So this m square over here, this m is nothing but referred to as the Mach number, and we know that Mach number is nothing but equal to uh, velocity of fluid and divided by the velocity of sound in that fluid medium which we have actually undertaken. Okay, so this particular relationship is nothing but in between the upstream pressure of the fluid, and this P naught term is particularly known as the total pressure, or I should say the stagnant pressure of the fluid medium. Okay, so this is known as total pressure or stagnant pressure. Okay, or stagnation pressure. So what basically this P naught represents? P naught represents the pressure in the fluid after an isentropic adiabatic deceleration along the streamline takes place to a zero velocity condition. Okay, so for example, if I take a pipe, and inside that pipe, if I consider that flow of fluid is happening. Now what I have done, I have placed a very thin solid obstruction over here, and the thickness of this solid obstruction is selected in such a fashion so that it's actually identical to that of single streamline of the fluid which is actually interacting with it. Okay, so what will be happening in the upstream? We will be having certain pressure P of the fluid medium, and we will be having certain velocity, say U. Okay, now what will be happening while this motion of the fluid will be actually streamline will be approaching towards uh, this particular solid element. So over here what will be happening at the surface of the solid, obviously we will be having nothing but the zero velocity condition. Okay, so what we will be having, we will be having a zero velocity condition at the surface of the solid. Okay, so it means you can see over here, if you want to measure the total energy of the flow, or particularly if I consider, say we are having a fluid particle, and that fluid particle while actually it was approaching towards the solid, its velocity has actually decreased, and that decrease of velocity or that deceleration of the particle has taken place under the isentropic and the adiabatic conditions. Okay, so under such scenario, what will be happening at this particular location in the upstream of the solid obstruction, we were having nothing but P as pressure field and U as velocity field. Okay, so the total energy was nothing but P plus half into rho U square. Okay, while at this point, particularly at the surface of the solid, flow or fluid particle has actually come to rest. So it means its velocity has become zero. So corresponding to this zero velocity, whatever the pressure we are getting, say that pressure is nothing but equal to P naught. So obviously at this point our total energy is now nothing but equal to P naught, and we are considering that both these points are located under the same gravitational head. Okay, so we are not having any level difference in between the 2 points. Okay, so over here you can see that this first P term was nothing but static pressure of the fluid, and this second term half rho uv square, it was nothing but representing the kinetic head. Okay, so you can see over here that while you are placing some obstruction to the flow, and if uh, because of that obstruction we are having isentropic and adiabatic deceleration of the fluid particle along a streamline, particularly to a zero velocity condition. In that case, what will be happening? Our this particularly this kinetic head will be actually converting into only a static head. Okay, so that particular pressure, which includes both the pressure because of the static pressure and the pressure because of the flow, so that particular pressure is something which is known as total pressure or stagnation pressure. Okay, so what we can do, we can devise some mechanical arrangement which will be giving us the values of static pressure as well as the value of the stagnant pressure, and if we know these two values we can determine nothing but the velocity or localized velocity of the fluid particle for that particular streamline. Okay, so this is the basic principle which represents the coupling in between the pressure and the flow field. Now, what will be happening, particularly in case of if you try to see the pressure density relationship with the velocity field, so that is nothing but equal to half of rho u square, and that is equal to nothing but half of gamma times m square into p, and where this m is Mach number and gamma is the ratio of specific fields. Okay. Now, if we are having small Mach number, so particularly this all these equations are coming from the knowledge of the fluid dynamics, particularly for the compressible flow. Okay, so because the Mach number becomes prominent when we are having the compressible flow situation, and when our Mach number is very small, in that case we consider that our flow situation is nothing but incompressible. Okay, now for the small Mach numbers, what will be happening? We will be having the difference between the total pressure and the static pressure as equal to half rho u square into 1 plus m square by 4 plus 2 minus gamma m to power 4 divided by 24, plus we will be having this as some infinite series. Okay, now what will be happening if we are having incompressible flow situation? Obviously we consider that for incompressible flow situation our Mach number is very small. So in that case, what will be happening for incompressible flow? Mach number will become equal to 0, and in that case P naught minus P will be equal to half rho u square, what I have actually explained you over here in this particular equation. Okay, so in general, if we consider the generalized equation which gives the relationship in between the total pressure and the static pressure, that is actually using this particular equation. Okay, and here now if we are having compressible flow situation, obviously we will be having the significant value of the Mach number, and we can substitute that value also over here. So this whatever I have included over here, this is nothing but it tells the relationship in between the pressure and the velocity. Now, what is the mechanical arrangement which is used for measurement of the static pressure and the stagnation pressure? That is that we will try to see in the later lectures. Okay, so in today's lecture we will not particularly talk about that. Rather, in today's lecture we will talk about the measurement of velocity based on the differential pressure field. Okay, so the arrangement which is used for measurement of static and the stagnant pressure, that particular arrangement is known as pitot tube, and in our subsequent lectures we will try to see the measurement of velocity field using pitot tube as our velocity measurement device. Okay. Now, there are certain guidelines for measurement of total pressure. So, particularly while we will be installing the pitot tube, so we have to follow certain guidelines so that our measurements of the total and the accurate and the static pressure are accurate. Okay, finally, which will be actually giving us the value of the flow field. So, first thing is that measuring device should be small enough that there is negligible disturbance to the incoming flow. So obviously when we will be putting some intrusion to the flow field, we will be putting some external device. So because of that there will be some localized disturbances to the flow. So our device should be small enough so that whatever the disturbances are produced, these are nothing but negligible and are not introducing significant changes on the flow dynamics of the phenomenon. Okay, then these type of devices should be correctly aligned to the velocity vector field. So obviously, because we have to measure the stagnant pressure, particularly along a streamline. So what we have to do, we have to consider that our measurement device should be very much aligned to the streamline. Okay. So what happens while we are having the situations of turbulent flow? Obviously, in case of turbulent flow, we will not be having very well defined pattern of the streamline. So there we cannot always ensure that our device is perfectly aligned with the velocity vector. So that's why in case of turbulent flow, this type of measurements may give errors. So we have to apply some corrections over there. Okay. Then a stagnation pressure device, whatever we are considering, that should be small enough that the assumption of deceleration of a single streamline is valid. Because while we are deriving the theoretical relation, we are considering that deceleration of the fluid particle is actually taking place along a streamline. So in order to ensure that the deceleration, or basically the stagnant pressure, is coming along a streamline only, we have to consider the thickness of the measurement devices very, very small. Okay. Then a Reynolds number is sufficiently large that the assumption of isentropic and inviscid streamline deceleration is valid. Okay, so that will be valid if we are having the fast flow. Okay, because if flow is slow, in that case, what will be happening? There will be sufficient chances for the energy to exchange between the fluid layer. So because of that, we will not be having the condition of isentropic assumption applicable. Okay. Then dimensions of the device are negligible compared to the incoming flow length scale. So obviously, this is something which is also related to the size of the device. Okay. Otherwise, if its length scale is becoming comparable to that of the dimension of the pipeline, in that case, it will be leading to the disturbances over the flow field, which cannot be neglected. Okay. Now, let us try to see some of the methods which are based on the differential pressure in order to obtain the flow rate or velocity, average velocity field. Okay. So, let us first try to see the theoretical background. So, what we have considered a situation where we are having A1 as the initial cross-sectional area, and rho1 as density field, and U1 as velocity, and then we are having P1 and T1 as the temperatures. Okay, then we have provided certain obstruction to the flow, and because of that obstruction, now what has happened in the downstream of the obstruction, now we are having U2 as the velocity field, P2, T2 are the pressure and corresponding temperature field, and rho2 and A2 are the A2 is cross-sectional area and rho2 is the corresponding density field. Okay, so now what I can do, if I take the assumption of incompressible fluid and steady flow, and particularly one more thing I'll be considering over here, I'll consider that our flow is nothing but inviscid. Okay, so our fluid is also inviscid. So we are having inviscid, incompressible and steady flow situation. So over here, if I apply the Bernoulli's equation, I can write P1 by rho g plus U1 square divided by 2g is nothing but equal to P2 divided by rho g plus U2 square divided by 2g. Okay. So now we know from the knowledge of our continuity equation that rho1 A1 into U1 is equal to rho2 A2 into U2, particularly for a steady flow. Okay, so if flow is steady, then this equation, this will be our continuity equation. Now we also have the condition of incompressibility. So because of that, rho will also be cancelling. So rho is cancelling because of the condition of incompressibility. So in that case, finally we will be finding that our A1 U1 is nothing but equal to A2 U2. Okay, so from this particular formulation, I can find out or relate the value of U1 in terms of U2 only. So I can write U1 is nothing but equal to A2 by A1 times U1. Okay, so now if I find out the value of U2 and just replace this value of U1, so finally what I'll be getting P1 minus P2 divided by rho g equal to u2 square divided by 2g, and this u2 square by 2g will be common, and if I take u1 also to the right hand side, in place of u1 I can write minus a2 by a1 whole square into u2 whole square by 2g, so that will be coming as constant. Okay, so this g will be cancelling out, and finally if I have to find out the value of u2 square, that will be coming out to be nothing but 1 divided by 1 minus a2 by a1 whole square times P1 minus P2 divided by rho. Okay, now we know from continuity equation that my flow rate, say corresponding to second cross section, if I find, so that will be nothing but equal to A2 into U2. Okay, so from here you can find out that our flow rate will be nothing but equal to A2 times, and U2 square is this. So if I replace this one, so I will be getting U2 divided by square root of 1 minus A2 divided by A1 whole square, okay, multiplied by square root of P1 minus P2 divided by rho. So this is nothing but we are getting the theoretical value of the flow rate, considering we are having steady flow situation, incompressible fluid, and we are having inviscid flow. Okay, so if you see over here from the practical perspective, steady flow and incompressible flow conditions are applicable, because we may have fluids which are of incompressible nature, and obviously we can easily obtain the steady flow conditions, and we follow in majority of our fluid thermal related experiments. Okay, but particularly whatever the assumption we are considering over here, inviscid flow, because of that we are not having any pressure drop in between the two particular locations. So what will be happening in the real scenarios, we will be having fluids will be having certain viscosity, because of that there will be actually some pressure loss also. Okay, so what will be happening while we will be applying certain flow obstruction based methods for measurement of the flow rate or velocity, our actual value of the flow rate will be actually different from the value which theoretically we are obtaining. Okay, so what we do, we take the ratio of actual flow rate divided by theoretical flow rate, and this ratio is particularly related with a factor, and that factor is known as actually coefficient of discharge. Okay, so what we will be doing, while we will be employing certain arrangement, for that particular arrangement, depending upon its geometry, flow conditions, we will be having the value of some coefficient, and that particular coefficient is known as coefficient of discharge, which will be actually relating our theoretical value to the actual value of the flow rate. Okay, and over here you can see that the theoretical value of the flow rate is nothing but depending upon the geometrical parameters A2 and A1, and differential pressure P1 minus P2, and it is depending upon also the density of the fluid medium. And if we are having incompressible flow, so obviously density we are considering as constant. Okay, so this is how, like, if we know the measurements of the pressure, by just knowing the value of the pressure, we can determine the value of the flow. Okay, then if we consider the situation of compressible flow, so obviously, compressible flow, we will be having certain another situation. So in case of compressible flow, what will be happening? We will be, if we consider that the fluid is nothing but a ideal gas. Okay, so if we are having an ideal gas and that is flowing through this type of obstruction section, so in that case, what will be happening? Our total energy will be nothing but Cp times T1 plus U1 square divided by 2. This will be equal to nothing but Cp times T2 plus U2 square divided by 2. Okay, so that will be our the total energy, and depending upon that, we will be actually relating the value of stagnant temperature field over here, because now in this case, what will be happening if we are obtaining the stagnation of the property? So because of that, what will be happening? The temperature field at the stagnant point will be actually uh, including the effect of the kinetic deceleration which has happened in the fluid. Okay, So in this particular type of measurement, if we consider flow field, compressible flow and an ideal gas, for that the value of mass flow rate square will be nothing but equal to 2 times A2 square multiplied by gamma divided by gamma minus 1. Here gamma is nothing but ratio of specific heats Cp by Cv into P1 square divided by RT1, and inside the bracket we are having P2 by P1 to power 2 by gamma minus P2 by P1 to the power gamma plus 1 divided by gamma. Okay. So now this particular relation, whatever we are having over here, this particular relation, if we are having the pressure drop between our 2 points, if it is less than P1 times by 4. So obviously what will be happening? We are having some upstream condition. So corresponding to upstream condition, we will be having P1 pressure, and then after the obstruction over the flow, we will be having some downstream condition, and corresponding to downstream condition also we will be having certain pressure P2. Okay, and the difference of upstream pressure minus downstream pressure will be equal to delta P. Okay. Now, if we consider that whatever the delta P we are having, if that delta P is less than P1 by 4, under such conditions, we can simplify this relation from here, and this relation will be becoming equal to nothing but square root of 2 by RT1 into A2 multiplied by P2 into delta P minus 1.5 by gamma minus 1 into delta P whole square plus so on up to this will be nothing but once again an infinite series. Okay. Now, if our value of pressure drop is less than P1 by 10, so obviously you can see this delta P is nothing but having powers over here. So whatever the error we will be having upon on removing the higher order terms, that will be having the order identical to that of the error which is associated in the pressure field. Okay, pressure change. So what will be happening if we consider that delta P is very small, it means if it is less than P1 by 10, in that case what we can do, we can neglect the higher order terms and we will be getting this simplified relation for the mass flow rate, which will be equal to A2 times square root of 2 times P2 divided by RT1 into P1 minus P2. Okay, so this particular slide represents the relations for measurement of the mass flow rate depending upon the pressure and temperature field, where when we are considering compressible flow and when we are considering that our fluid is nothing but following the ideal gas behavior. Okay, so these are the relations which are available for compressible flow measurements. Now, when we apply these devices, obstruction-based devices in our practical scenario, so normally we go for 3 type of arrangements. The very first type of arrangement where we take some convergent divergent section, that type of arrangement is actually particularly known as a venturi. Okay. Then another type of arrangement we take where we are having actually sudden flow obstruction. So this type of sudden flow obstruction is something which is known as an orifice meter. Okay, and only advantage of orifice meter is that this type of method of measurement is actually less costly in comparison to the other designs of flow obstruction. Okay, then we are having something which is there in between the venturi and the orifice meter, and that particular type of flow obstruction design is known as nozzle based. So flow nozzle based obstruction. Okay, so what generally we do, we try to measure the differential pressure. So one pressure tapping we take in the upstream of the obstruction and one in the throat section of the venturi. And similarly, we are having at the one pressure tapping at the outlet of the nozzle and one in the upstream section downstream. Obviously, for this type of orifice meter, we are having 3 different ways. So we are having 3 different arrangements for employing pressure tappings, so that we will try to see in the next slides. So what are the different methods? So but overall idea is that one we will be having in the upstream of the orifice plate and one we will be having in the downstream of the orifice plate. Okay, so now based on these pressure values, if we are having the incompressible flow situation, obviously density will be known for that particular type of fluid and it will not be changing in the flow passage. So for that we can, by just knowing the area ratio, we can actually determine the theoretical value of the flow rate, which can then further be corrected with the help of coefficient of discharge. Okay, so coefficient of discharge or flow coefficient can be related in multiple with some multiple other coefficients. So some of these are specified over here. So you can see over here we are defining this m as coefficient. So let us consider it as m bar. Okay, so though I have used different sources for preparing these lectures, so that's why you can see over here that earlier also I have used the symbol m, but that is used for Mach number. So that's why let us consider this m as nothing but m bar over here. So I am calling this m bar as my velocity of approach factor. So you have already seen that we are having certain relationship in between the input and upstream and the velocity which is on the downstream of the obstruction. So the factor with which that velocity is related between the upstream and the downstream, that particular factor is nothing but equal to 1 divided by square root of 1 minus a2 by a1 whole square. Okay, so that particular term is something which is known as velocity of approach factor. Okay, then we are having another coefficient, flow coefficient. So flow coefficient is nothing but it is given by a symbol k and it is equal to coefficient of discharge times approach factor m. Okay, and another factor we are having beta, which is called as diameter ratio between the obstructed area. So this small d is corresponding to the obstructed area. For example, in case of venturi, it will be the area of the throat. In case of nozzle, it will be the area at the outlet of the nozzle, and in case of orifice, it will be nothing but area of the flow which is available at the orifice plate. Okay, so this is equal to the ratio of d by d, and ultimately it is nothing but equal to square root of a2 divided by a1. Okay, now what will be happening? So these factors will be applicable or directly measurable when we are having nothing but our incompressible flow situation. When we are having the compressible flow situation, then obviously we have to go for some additional factors, and these additional factors will be actually coming because of the expansion of the flow field. Okay, so generally what we are doing in case of obstruction, actually initially we are having some wider section in the upstream, and then we are actually reducing our cross section in order to create some obstruction for the flow. Okay, so while we are actually reducing the cross section or while we are creating the obstruction to the flow field, in that case what will be happening, because the velocity corresponding to the plane 2 will be more in comparison to velocity field corresponding to cross section 1. So because of that, what will be happening, pressure field at point 2, static pressure at point 2 will be less in comparison to static pressure at point 1. Okay, so because of this pressure difference, in case of compressible flow, what will be happening, there will be decrease in density. Okay, so there what will be happening in case of compressible flow, because our static pressure is actually decreasing. So because of the decrease of the static pressure, there will be nothing but decrease in density of the fluid. Okay, so as the density of the fluid will be decreasing, because of that there will be nothing but expansion of the fluid over here. Okay, so because of that, what we have to do, we have to account for certain factor in order to find out the correct estimate of the flow rate. So that particular factor is known as expansion factor. Okay, so when we are having the compressible flow situation for venturi and nozzle type obstructions, we are having expansion factor which is related to the P2 by P1 ratio along with gamma as our factor. Okay, and here we are considering that our nothing but compressible fluid is behaving as an ideal gas. Okay, then for orifice type devices, we are having the two different this one coefficients of expansion. So what we can do while we will be using the orifice type devices, as I have told you that depending upon the type of arrangement, we can employ three different configurations for taking the pressure taps. So now depending upon the location of the pressure tap, we will be having different factor of expansion. Okay, so it means these two factors, particularly for orifice plates, these are nothing but depends upon the location of pressure taps. So we will be having certain tappings for pressure. So this depends upon the location of pressure taps. So I'll explain you in the subsequent slides that which factor is actually used when what arrangement of pressure taps we are having. Okay. So now let us try to see some of the graphs which relates the value of these expansion factors. So over here we are having expansion factor, adiabatic expansion factor, and this expansion factor is actually particularly applicable for nothing but our Venturi and nozzle type devices. Okay, so this is plotted as function of different arrangements. So whatever the theoretical formula we have seen, nothing but that theoretical formula is actually related with the help of or presented in the graphical form. Okay, so this is plotted for gamma equal to 1.4, and this we are having the value of different values of beta. Here beta is nothing but we have seen ratio of d by d. Okay, and over here in the abscissa we are having the ratio of pressures P2 by P1, and this factor is also represented over here, X factor, which is called as P1 minus P2 by P1. Okay, so depending upon the different values of pressure ratio and the value of the expansion factor, we can determine the value of this adiabatic expansion coefficient. Okay, then this is the corresponding value of the expansion factor for square edged orifices. So we may have orifice of circular type cross section. We may have orifice of square cross section where we are providing some curvature at the corners of the cross section. So particularly whatever this factor is represented over here, this factor is actually represented for the square edged orifices. Okay, so this is also for gamma equal to 1.4 and different values of the beta area ratio. Okay, and these are the values of the pressure ratio. Then now because already I have told you that while we are actually calculating the value of the actual flow rate, that is something which is cannot be directly measured from the theoretical correlations whatever we have derived, because in case of theoretical correlations we have considered the assumption of inviscid flow, wherever in actual practice we will be having some viscosity, and moreover the obstruction also will create certain permanent changes in our flow field. Okay, so because of that we have to consider or we have to multiply with certain factors in order to obtain the accurate value of the actual flow rate. So when we are having the incompressible flow situation, for incompressible flow situation, particularly for Venturis, we multiply the product of C into M. So this product of C into M is nothing but called as K, flow coefficient. Okay, so we multiply the product of coefficient of discharge and M, which represents the velocity approach factor. So we multiply these two factors in order to relate our actual flow rate with the theoretical value of the flow rate. Okay, and particularly for nozzles and orifices, we are having K times K2 into 2 by rho P1 minus P2. Okay, then for in compressible flow situation, what we will be having, because I have already told you in case of compressible flow we will be having certain expansion factor also. Okay, so that expansion factor of the flow is also multiplied over here, and this expansion factor times C into M into A2 multiplied by 2 into rho 1 multiplied by P1 minus P2 square root is actually giving us the value of the actual mass flow rate. Okay, so one important thing you can see over here, while we are actually calculating the flow rate for compressible flows, we are actually specifying it in terms of the mass flow rate. Why? Because whatever the value we are measuring, that is nothing but depending upon the localized density field also. So that's why we are multiplying that density field also into our consideration, and we are obtaining. And similarly, for nozzle and orifice also, we are multiplying this factor y over here. Okay. However, one important point you have to take care that while we are using this factor y for nozzles and Venturis, then we are having only a single plot from which we can obtain the value of y. However, particularly for orifices, we are having two different coefficients. So depending upon the type of the pressure taps, we will be using the value of y. Okay. Now, one important point also I would like to highlight over here. So when we do create some obstruction in order to measure our flow, so that obstruction actually leads to certain pressure drop in our flow field. Okay, so if we were not having any obstruction, then because of that we would have been certain change of the pressure. Okay, for example, if delta p naught was the pressure corresponding to no obstruction, and while we are having the obstruction, so because of the obstruction now we will be having some delta p pressure, and obviously this delta p will be greater than delta p naught. Okay, so what will be happening, the difference of delta p and delta p naught, so delta p minus delta p naught, that will be actually representing the pressure drop. Okay, so that will be nothing but the pressure drop which is caused. So this pressure drop is nothing but caused due to the presence of obstruction. Okay, so it is caused due to obstruction. So what will be happening? We will be having certain pressure because of the obstruction. So that delta P minus delta P naught is something which is considered as delta P loss, which is happening because of the obstruction. So obviously now while the flow of the fluid will be happening, our fluid should have sufficient amount of energy in order to overcome this delta P loss, which is actually occurring because of the change in cross section or creation of the obstruction. Okay, so what we can do, we can determine that what fraction of this delta P loss is actually corresponding to the total change of pressure P1 minus P2. Okay, so it is characterized over here for different beta ratios. So beta is nothing but I have already told you, it is d by d. So if we take the value of beta 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, particularly for square edged orifice, so majority of the pressure drop between the 2 points will be actually contributed because of the obstruction only. So you can see over here 86% of the total pressure drop is actually created because of this obstruction only. Okay, when we are having the value of beta equal to 0.4. Then in case of flow nozzles, you can see slightly there is decrease in the value of pressure loss. So it means flow nozzles give slightly lesser pressure loss in comparison to that of the orifice plate. And particularly if we consider the venturi, in case of venturi, what we are having initially a converged cross section. Okay, then we are having a throat, and after the throat we are having nothing but divergence. Okay, so what we do, we are having certain specified value of angles for convergent section and for divergent section. So if we consider the angle of divergence equal to 7 degrees, in that case you can see that the pressure loss because of the structure or because of the obstruction is only 0.1 times of the total pressure drop. So from here you can see that venturi is the device which offers smallest pressure loss because of the physical obstruction which is created across the flow. Okay. Now what we are having actually certain standard designs available for different type of flow obstruction devices. So particularly one representation I have included over here for the detailed drawing of the venturi. So this particular type of detailed design is actually taken from the ASME standard. So it is as per the ASME regulations. So you can see over here this capital D represents the diameter of the upstream pipe, and then in between we are having some flange arrangement, and that flange arrangement is actually connecting our venturi. So over here you can see this is nothing but the point at which this flange is starting, and this is the point at which this flange is connecting the downstream portion of the pipe. Okay, so alpha 1 and alpha 2 are the angles which just now I have specified you in the previous slide also. Then you can see over here in this particular arrangement we are having some convergent section, then we are having throat section, then we are having divergent section. Okay, so you are having different parameters. For example, you can see over here this A, B, C, delta are the different dimensions, and what are the proportions which should be used to obtain the standard Venturi meter, so that you can see over here. So different geometric relations are given over here, and these are actually related in terms of the diameter of the pipe. So obviously, when the diameter of the pipe will be changing, the corresponding size of the Venturi will also be actually changing. Okay. Now, one important point is here, while we actually apply the pressure taps in order to obtain the difference of pressure in between the upstream and the downstream of the obstruction. So you can specifically see over here the location of the pressure tap is also specified. So this A and C represents the locations of the pressure taps, particularly from throat section and the section where our convergent section is actually starting. Okay, and you can see the type of the pressure tap. So this over here open area, nothing but represents the pressure tap. So you can see over here, this pressure tap is actually, I think, having circumferential cross section. Okay, so particularly if you see this photograph, you can see this is the section plane where our flow of the fluid, or where fluid will be present. So over here also you can see over this entire cross section we will be having the presence of the fluid. So it means while pressure taps are designed, these are actually designed in such a fashion so that the pressure is measured from the entire circumferential periphery. Okay, so why? Because entire circumferential periphery will be giving the good estimate of the average pressure. Okay, so this is how pressure taps are designed. And particularly if one has to design Venturi for any specific pipe conditions or flow conditions, one can follow this particular standard for designing the Venturi. Okay. Then in case of Venturi, what we are having the value of discharge coefficients. So we have some curve available from which we can obtain the value of discharge coefficients. Why we require discharge coefficients? Because these are required to relate the actual flow rate and the theoretical flow rate, as we have seen in the previous slide. So for different values of the flow Reynolds number, we can see over here we are having the curve for finding out the value of discharge coefficient, and this particular type of curve is actually applicable when we are having value of beta within the range 0.25 to 0.75 and our pipe diameter is actually greater than 2 inch. Okay, and this particular over here you can see we are having some dotted lines also. So these dotted lines nothing but represents the positive error and negative error in the measurement of our discharge coefficients. Okay. Then if we have to obtain the discharge coefficients for all the pipes for which we are having diameter greater than 2 inch, because previous graph was applicable only up to 2 inch. So for diameter greater than 2 inch, you can see over here the value of discharge coefficient for different Reynolds number. Now one important point I would like to highlight over here, if you see the previous plot, you can see over here Reynolds number is actually given in terms of the upstream diameter of the upstream pipe. Okay, whereas in case of this particular second plot, here Reynolds number is actually given based on the diameter of the throat of the Venturi. So this you have to take care that while you are obtaining the value of the coefficient, different length scales for determining the value of the Reynolds number. So here you can see specifically it is mentioned that it is a throat Reynolds number, whereas in the previous case it was actually the Reynolds number corresponding to the upstream pipe. Okay. Now these two plots can be used for obtaining the value of discharge coefficient. So that is like one of the easiest method to find out the flow rate. But what can be done if you want to obtain the accurate value of the discharge coefficients also, if you don't want to utilize the values which are obtained which are given in this type of plot. So for accurate measurements, what you can do, you can just calibrate the device with some existing standard which is available, and based on that you can determine the discharge coefficient for your own device, and then you can employ that for measurement of the flow rate. Okay. Okay, after that we are having designs of nozzles. So what I will do now, I will stop at this point and then we will continue our discussion in the next lecture on remaining topics.